I am Dr. Robotnik, the greatest scientific genius in the world.
For a change of pace.
Because you just told me.
How fast can Sonic screw things up? Instantly, he's the fastest thing alive.
Long live the Eggman Empire.
Excellent! All systems, full power!
Dr. Ivo Robotnik. Foil and archenemy of Sonic the Hedgehog, the bad doctor has been terrorizing players with dastardly machines and machinations since 1991, and has proven to be perhaps the most prolific villain in all of video games. While colleagues like Bowser, Ganon, and Sephiroth typically show up more when listing the most iconic baddies of the medium, Eggman's massive output of games, comics, television series, animations, movies, web things.
Well, I've been watching this killer show where this little dweeb turns into a bunch of chainsaws and hunts down enemies.
That sounds awesome.
If you're even tangentially tuned in to games or children's media, the odds of bumping into old Ivo here somewhere down the line in the past 30-some years has been both incredibly likely and incredibly consistent. The shadow of the Eggman Empire has long loomed over games, with various appearances showing off a few truly dastardly schemes, an overwhelming sense of presence and consequence for what happens when you allow the doc to run amok. Memorable showdowns of expansive scope and concept and difficulty. Everything that video game villains have done well, Dr. Eggman has built up, executed, and thrust himself into the center of. And that might be one of the bigger issues many take with the character.
What? You don't like me?
I'm sure you've come across someone at some point who refuses to call this character anything other than Robotnik, not helped by them being different characters sometimes. With the sheer number of appearances the Doctor's had over multiple decades, different pieces of media, different authors behind him, and different values as to what Sonic should really be, there's a point with many where they stop taking the funny talking egg seriously as a threat. Eggman can fit any role and will tackle it with gusto, but that sheer variety and the many, many ways Sonic has clowned on the guy over the years tends to keep him not necessarily being less seriously taken as his cartoonish peers, but perhaps devalued in the grand scheme of things compared to, say, King Koopa. Eventually, many will find that dastard who would roboticize Little Planet, blow up half the moon, rip the Earth or even reality itself asunder to fulfill his ambitions, gets overshadowed by Baldy McNosehair and his parade of failure.
Nothing will stop me. I know I say that every time, but this time really, nothing will stop me.
Hey, guy.
Eggman is always a notable villain, but his record very commonly has notes and asterisks all over it that keep him out of common contention as one of the all-timers, essentially getting the Perfect Attendance Award for video game villains. But that's overlooking exactly what makes Eggman so great. Is this man a buffoon? Absolutely. Always has been, never won't be, no matter how many worlds he conquers/destroys.
Silence!
But that comes entirely from his flaws as a villain that gives him a need to be set up as a fool, so he can have the chance to stroke his own ego. Eggman is perhaps one of the most focused villains in not just games, but media in representing the sin he revels in, as his insatiable ego and inexhaustible pride informs every decision he makes, every scheme he hatches, every flaw in every boss fight he's ever had, and why he can never, ever stop hating that hedgehog. Eggman's greatest weakness as a villain is, and always has been, himself. and he's fostered that weakness so carefully and so loudly that it has overtaken and become every single part of his being, and made him into the beloved character he is today. Citizens of Earth and Mobius alike, lend me your ears, for the madman before you is not your garden variety villain. This is Dr. Eggman, the most unstoppable, uncompromising, relentlessly destructive, and ultimately self-destructive villain video games have ever seen.
Now begins the glorious era of the Empire of Eggman.
Deep in the rolling hills of South Island lies a dimension beyond time. A secret zone where reality ceases to matter, where chaos spirals on infinitely, and where motion sickness is not something that we worry about at all. In this warped plane lie the 7 Chaos Emeralds, gems of legend containing infinite power. This tale of an unlimited power source draws out the brilliant scientist, Ivo Robotnik, to find the legendary island, seek out the emeralds, and use his technological genius to better all of mankind. And of course, bettering all of mankind means destroying the environment for all of its resources to use in the production of robots and mechanical metropolises, including taking all the cute little animals nearby and shoving them into cool robot bodies with wheels and spike shooters, and removing their free will and instating Dr. Robotnik as supreme ruler of the world. Can't you just smell the progress?
Oh, it just makes me tingle all over.
While Robotnik struggles to find the emeralds, he manages to construct a massive mechanical fortress on the island, and turns most of its inhabitants into his scrap-brain servants. However, a wandering hero dedicated to freedom hears that some no-good-nick is forcing animals to become badnicks. And it's here where the evil doctor first faces off against his nemesis, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Chili dog.
Now, Sonic may seem like a bit of an odd choice to put up against Robotnik. Sure, you've got essentially a speedy jock facing off against a portly nerd, but the doc's design doesn't really lead into any mechanical opposition to Sonic in the way that Bowser's spikes discourage Mario's jump, or Dracula's teleporting necessitates pinpoint accuracy from Simon Belmont's limited movement. Moreover, Robotnik doesn't even wait until the end of the game to face off with his nemesis. This guy is the very first boss, swinging around a wrecking ball in a tiny little arena. Obviously, you don't ram your cool little man into the wrecking ball he's trying to hit you with, so you jump into Robotnik. Oh, he's a little more durable than Mario bosses. Whoa, 8 hits instead of 3? You spoil me, Doctor. Wouldn't get that on Nintendo. You beat him pretty easily, unlock this animal capsule to free a bunch of friends, and move on to Marble Zone with its new boss, Dr. Robotnik. And then Springyard Zone, where you fight Dr. Robotnik. Labyrinth, Robotnik, but you kinda race him. Starlight, Robotnik. Final boss, whoops! All Robotniks! And that is what sets him as the perfect foil to Sonic. The blue blur is an unstoppable force physically, but mentally, there's no quit in Robotnik either.
If it's the last thing I do, I'm gonna get even with that scheme-stopping spine-headed hedgehog.
Just counting the 3 and Knuckles Sonic games on the Genesis and throw in Sonic CD, you fight Robotnik 31 times. And that's being generous, combining the Launch Base and Doomsday bosses into one, and discounting the Laser Prison and Brass Eggman. The only times this hard-boiled boffin isn't serving as the direct antagonist to Sonic is in between acts in Sonic 3, if he's tricked some knucklehead into fighting you instead, or if he's created a robotic doppelganger to take Sonic down. And in 2 of those, he's right at ringside to see Sonic fail. You take every boss fight from Bowser, Dracula, and Dr. Wily combined up to 1994, and Robotnik is still #1 before you even start looking at Game Gear games and spin-offs. This is the driving force of the Robotnik Empire. Endless innovation coming from an insatiable need for destruction. The man will toss every single idea he has, from laser pinball tables to weird inflatable orb clones to big arms. And no matter how silly or how bad, we'll push it forward to destroy his enemies. Little Wrecking Ball or Drill Car didn't work out?
Don't get too excited, boys! Those were the easy ones!
Robotnik may be a villain that you beat constantly, but it's very, very rare that you actually put him down. Heck, you could even beat the entire game, and if you didn't scour every inch of those special zones, that mad scientist will be there mocking you to try again. He can always rebuild if he even has one chance to do so. And this isn't something that vanishes with time either. From adventure to advance, Sonic 4 to Sonic Forces, Unleashed to Mania, if you're not fighting another villain forcing their way past Robotnik to scrap with Sonic, a natural force of disaster you happen to come across, or some dude Robotnik's pretending to be while he's off building a bigger robot, or our King Boom Boo for some reason, Robotnik is at least there to watch you fail, if not mix it up with Sonic himself. And while you could chalk it up to being a cute little technical limitation, it saves on storage to have the same boss with a couple variations as well as design space. Ivo isn't satisfied with being an obstacle to overcome. After losing, he makes it his entire personality to hate that hedgehog.
I really hate that hedgehog. I hate him. I hate him. Hate him! Hate, 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 hate!
After his first defeat, Robotnik obsesses over his new rodent rival, following Sonic in secret as the World Wanderer visits West Side Island. Here, Robotnik builds up a new base, eventually learning that this island too used to host the Chaos Emeralds, and sensing their energy readings, begins mechanizing the wildlife again. But this time, Ivo ain't settling for a mere base. Here, he would launch the Death Egg, a massive space fortress in his image which, when fueled by the power of the emeralds, could wipe entire stars off the charts. Joining forces with one of the island's inhabitants, a young technical prodigy named Miles Prower, or Tails, Sonic would once again battle Robotnik's forces, using the Doctor's technology to launch into the depths of space, into the heart of the Death Egg, to foil his mad plan. And here is where Robotnik's insatiable ego truly starts to shine. Nicky ain't just flailing around wildly building whatever he can as a last-ditch effort. This man is constructing entire casino theme parks in order to bounce the blue blur around and laugh at his incompetence. Why? He likes theme parks. While all of Robotnik's zones fuel his empire, destroy the beauty of nature around him, and represent his absolute control over all things, they're also massive reflections of his ego and almost childish interests. The Death Egg is his first true monument to this, a moon-sized representation of his gaze, always watching over the world below, always ready to strike down anything with his technological genius that isn't suiting his mood. But so too are his carnival nights, his music plants, his egg pawns, and weird slot machine robots that he designed with a power-up Shadow the Hedgehog setting for some reason.
No! Not Shadow Fever!
Robotnik is allowed to be eccentric, some of his inventions looking almost comically ineffectual because his sheer technical prowess is so great, they can afford to lean into his goofy-looking appearance and dumb love of gambling and roller coasters. they're still matching or even outperforming actual military-grade robots when those show up to fight him. He'll even take credit for in-game glitches, instruction manuals warning about Dr. Robotnik's diabolical traps, where you might need to reset the game if Sonic goes too fast and gets stuck in a wall. There's nothing he can't take credit for, nothing too sacred for him to defile. Everything can fall into his gloved grasp. Nowhere is Robotnik's early presence felt more than in Sonic CD. Hearing rumor of the legendary Time Stones, Robotnik seeks out the elusive little planet before chaining it to a nearby mountain and encasing it in a metallic shell. Because, that's just what you do to a planet. The Mad Doctor uses the unique temporal tunnels of the celestial body to place robot generators in its past. And through the time-warping adventure of Sonic CD, we can visit all of the bad futures that would come from a Robotnik victory. Ancient ruins, lush beachsides, whatever collision chaos is supposed to be. Distorted, polluted, filled with robots to the point of even the local flora being replaced with facsimiles. And as the final bolt to screw into his time-warping rule, Robotnik has constructed the perfect symbol of his absolute conquest. Metal Sonic.
I am the real Sonic!
An emotionless, perfectly obedient, robotic version of his nemesis. Made to match all of Sonic's capabilities, predict all of his actions, and, quote, can put out speeds faster than Sonic in an instant. This is all that a rule under Robotnik promises. The destruction of all freedoms, all attitudes, all natural beauty, for its most efficient, most curated form. While Sonic represents and encourages freedom in others to be what they truly want, because if you try, you can do anything, Robotnik abuses the endless freedom of creation his genius allows for to pursue every myth, every power source, every precious resource his world can produce, to take that freedom from others and have them revel in his image. One of peak performance, obedience, and pinball bumpers.
In my bumpers and, well, even you can figure that out.
And this constant egotism, these endless schemes to twist and pollute the world, this demand to control the legends of man and myth alike, would follow the entire evolution of the Robotnik Empire. Sonic 3 shows Robotnik crash landing on the mysterious Angel Island after the destruction of the Death Egg in Sonic 2, running afoul of its guardian, Knuckles the Echidna. Thinking quickly, Robotnik assures the warrior that he's an innocent mind striving for a united, peaceful world, but he's been foiled in his mission by the horrible eco-terrorist and plunderer of the Chaos Emeralds, Sonic the Hedgehog. And seeing as, Sonic does actually have the emeralds, Knuckles absolutely buys that. Right up until the point that Nicky betrays him and uses the Master Emerald that Knuckles is guarding to relaunch the Death Egg and bring the world an even fiercer doomsday.
Oh no!
Only brought down when Knuckles shows Sonic through his ancient home, showing the Hedgehog the path he needs to follow in order to defeat the Doctor's latest scheme.
I will make you all pay for this.
Sonic Adventure sees Ivo repaying Knuckles' betrayal by shattering his precious Master Emerald, following the legend of Echidnopolis that he discovered to release
Chaos, the god of destruction!
from the Emerald's prison. Not only does this officially Sonic-christened Eggman begin collecting the Chaos Emeralds to fuel his new ancient weapon, he builds not one, but 2 flying fortresses to reign over the world, and a city-leveling missile just in case the water god doesn't work out. All to build Robotnik land on top of the watery grave of thousands. A perfect technological city to serve as his new world capital. But guess what? That whole water god thing doesn't work out and blows up his cool backup death ship. So Eggman puts mysticism on the back burner for a moment and seeks out the diary of legendary scientist and his grandfather, Gerald Robotnik. And after skimming a bit, bettering mankind, Gizoid, Maria, I was able to complete my project.
If you wish, release and awaken it to the world.
If you wish to fill the world with destruction. Sonic Adventure 2 sees him take that last passage to heart, single-handedly running through an entire military base with the power of stock image explosions to awaken his grandfather's legacy sealed within, Shadow the Hedgehog, and is guided to a weapon of immense power, made to end all wars with its sheer might. The Eclipse Cannon.
I like the way you think, Shadow. I will get the Chaos Emeralds, use the machine to dominate the world and build a legacy of my own.
After devising a plan to steal a majority of Chaos Emeralds from the military, Eggman blows up an island, blows up half of the moon, blackmails the president of country with the threat of national annihilation, and in every continuity, successfully gathers all of the emeralds to fuel up Grandpappy's gun with world-ending consequences. But when that jams and he's forced to abandon that plan, Eggman rereads some of that journal and is like, Gizoid, huh? Finding his grandfather's other old research project and setting up Sonic Battle, trying to harness the robot's Chaos Emerald absorbing power to work in tandem with his final egg blaster, which blows up stars, need I remind. But when that show of power impresses Emerald too much and makes the BattleBot want to destroy Earth, knocking Eggman out of consciousness and out of the plot in the process, the Mad Doctor decides to learn from his mistakes by building an obedient version named Gemroll in Sonic Advance 3 and using its awesome might to tear open reality and slowly try to reconstruct it to his will. And I hope you're starting to see why the guy is so dang tenacious.
What's wrong? Ready to surrender?
Dr. Eggman is never satisfied with a simple scheme. More often than not, he'll build on one of his older ones, do more testing, find a new power source, look for something or someone else to exploit that'll suit his needs even more perfectly. Every new game is a chance for Eggman to continue his narrative as the world's greatest scientific genius, always being defeated but never failing entirely. In fact, he's usually wildly successful. Sonic Adventure 2 sees the guy not only immediately call out a plan from Team Sonic to try to trick him with a fake Chaos Emerald, but he also successfully traps Sonic in a no-win hostage situation, humiliates and outsmarts Tails into ensuring that Sonic has no way out of this one, and jettisons Sonic into space, so confident in his victory that even Sonic was resigned to death.
I'm counting on you, Tails. And Amy, take care of yourself.
And would need a weird, plot-convenient miracle to pull him out of it.
Farewell, Sonic, my admirable adversary.
Sonic Unleashed sees Eggman tear apart the entire world after tricking Super Sonic of all people, tearing the Chaos Emeralds out of his adversary and transforming the blue blur until he was far worse for wear. Sure, the rest of the game he can't exactly stop Sonic from reuniting the continents in spite of his best efforts, but this gives him all the time he needs to finally construct Eggman Land, the glorious theme park / country with effigies, statues, and rides of the Doctor all around to indulge his ego and rule the world in.
This is my magnificent empire, made possible through my genius,
and the limitless energy harnessed from Dark Gaia.
I'll never understand Eggman's tastes.
And when that one doesn't pan out, Sonic Colors is right there to give him an interstellar amusement park, where he can not only exploit an alien race to drain them of their world's energy, and also their energy, might as well use every part of the cow, but to finally sit back and be the gleefully evil MC he'd always dreamed of, making sure all of his guests have a miserable time.
The unfiltered starlight from the lovely constellations above you is full of deadly radiation. Help yourself to our complimentary SPF 3000 star block. And by complimentary, I mean quite expensive.
Sonic Forces shows Eggman's most complete campaign yet, finding the mystical Phantom Ruby from olden times. A stone that's not the Chaos Emeralds for once, capable of conjuring reality-warping illusions, and sticking it inside of his cool, edgy thief friend who failed to assassinate him, don't worry about it, in order to make Infinite.
Oh, yes.
And then they go beat up Sonic together, capture him, torture him for months, make like the 4th or 5th Death Egg, depending on your definition of what a new Death Egg is, and take over a confirmed 99.99% of the planet. Also, he traps Sonic inside of the Nothing Dimension and tries to throw a fake sun at the only resistance left against him.
Get a load of this!
There is absolutely no quit to Eggman. The madman gleefully putting himself out there to gloat about his accomplishments, relish every single short victory he nabs on the path to his final conquest, and create even more chaos whenever presented the opportunity every time he stumbles. And sure, he might really like going to a new island where the Chaos Emeralds happen to be and enslaving the local wildlife there. A lot. Everyone has their hobbies. But Eggman puts his entire being into every scheme he pulls. This is a villain who thinks just as fast as Sonic can run. What could possibly hold him back?
No way! I can't believe this!
Let's think way back to that first boss fight. You've got a wrecking ball, a chain, and Robotnik to deal with. The obvious thought is, if I throw my spiky body into the ugly round man, it'll hurt him. And that proves true for Green Hill Zone, and Marble Zone, and Springyard Zone. Labyrinth doesn't count. And Starlight Zone. And Final. Wow, that's a bingo! And that doesn't stop at Sonic 1. For nearly 35 years, spanning the franchise's entire history, you can be sure that if you're fighting a Robotnik mech, its weakness will be its Robotnik-themed face, its Robotnik-themed belly, or the man himself. There is the occasional mech like the Egg Inferno where the Doctor patches up his weaknesses, but usually you just get the guy to hit himself in those cases. It's not really helping the whole self-destructive bit. And this is something that Eggman actively invites, creating obstacle courses that he's sure Sonic can't get through in the middle of fights, goading his adversary, who he easily outranges with a
See if you can make it through here, Sonic. Oh no!
That egomaniacal drive that allowed Eggman to build all those mechs is the same one that proves to be his downfall. His constant need to be in the spotlight, keeping him from protecting the only thing he can't rebuild to be perfect in every way. Himself.
What did you say? Now I'm really mad!
And he can't even help himself when he's not directly fighting either. Sonic's first showdown with Metal Sonic has Robotnik chase the two down with an instant death laser. And if the incredibly lethal regular wall didn't kill Metal, Robotnik certainly was gonna.
Oh no!
Or when Sonic is facing off against Chaos 6, completely unable to hurt the nearly fully awakened god, Eggman can't help himself from going,
Bombs? It's yours, my friend.
Oh no!
He even saves Sonic outright, rescuing the hedgehog from certain death in a lava pit so that his cool robot antlion can kill him instead.
Oh no!
through every single battle, something is Eggman's fault. And he's not getting outstatted by an impossible enemy, but outplayed by a trickster who abuses his craving for glory. Which, okay, sure, maybe you could chalk up to as a gameplay contrivance. But the man with the master plan can't seem to stop shooting himself and everyone around him in the foot in story, too.
First come, first served, they say. And you serve me too well for your own good.
Eggman's grandiose posturing and the need to be the focal point of attention is always putting him at odds with anyone he's ever shared an alliance with. As he says to Shadow when he really has absolutely no reason to not let the Ultimate Life Form take care of things during the Ark takeover.
I'm the one who should be telling them the end is near, not you.
His betrayal of Knuckles during the Angel Island incident leads to his ultimate downfall. The Guardian of the island using the power of the Sky Sanctuary to transport Sonic to the Death Egg and make it crash down one final time. He attempts to manipulate Shadow all throughout Shadow the Hedgehog, trying to sell a lie that, well, actually, you're one of my mass-produced androids that just look like Shadow, but you're a really cool one who should serve the Eggman Empire. And between the game's 10 possible non-final endings, 4 of which end in an Eggman boss fight, not a single one sees Shadow teaming up with the Doctor. Eggman proving to be less trustworthy than an alien cult leader conqueror and the military that killed Shadow's family.
Goodbye, Doctor.
While Eggman is really good at unleashing ancient evils, he's far less capable of actually controlling them. The likes of Chaos, Dark Gaia, and the Mother Wisp all easily dispatching the Doctor after he attempted control. And he was so ineffectual that one time, Solaris, he doesn't even know who Bro is. His bumbling is the reason Sonic Lost World gets so out of hand. His plan to control the legendary Deadly Six with a cool magic conch shell working perfectly until he just floats in front of Sonic to gloat. Sensing the opportunity to mock his foe yet again, Sonic just busts the shell open, letting the Zeddy break free of Eggman's control and take a much more destructive approach under the leadership of Zavok, and tossing Robotnik right to the side. Eggman has to team up with Sonic and fake his own death just to desperately try to wrest control of the situation back in his favor. With another robot with a glaring weak point, of course. Sonic! Even his immediate family can't stand the guy. Eggman Nega, a descendant of the Doctor from 200 years in the future, travels back in time and poses as his ancestor through Sonic rivals. Because the constant humiliation of Eggman's failures have sullied the Robotnik family name so thoroughly that the only reasonable thing to do would be to go back in time and use a super camera to turn Eggman into a trading card and erase his legacy from history.
I am unrivaled.
But it's not just the future that hates the guy. In Sonic Adventure 2, after gathering all 7 Chaos Emeralds to fire the Eclipse Cannon, Dr. Eggman actually accidentally sends the entire space colony he's on a collision course for Earth. His grandfather, Gerald Robotnik, input a secret code before his death, ensuring that if any nation or person was stupid and maniacal enough to power up this country-deleting laser for domination, he'd crash the whole thing into the planet so there wouldn't be any world to dominate. It just so happens that idiot ended up being his own grandson.
Oh!
You can feel that residual shame from 50 years beyond the grave. But nothing is more telling than how many of Eggman's own creations have turned on him. E-102 Gamma was made with just the slightest bit of sentience, part of a line of elite badniks designed to be competitive with their brothers.
Aye, aye, Master Robotnik.
In his few short days since activation, Gamma is forced to fight his brother, is asked to kidnap a nice frog and this nice bird, and accidentally walks into a room where he watches the brother he beat be dismantled as the malleability of his presently worthless and replaceable existence sinks in.
Beta? This is the wrong room.
And then is told to kill Sonic the Hedgehog, which is very hard. And that's enough for him to decide, you know, maybe Master Robotnik is the bad guy, before deciding to go on a campaign to free all of his siblings by exploding their metal exteriors and freeing the woodland animals within.
Dr. Robotnik. Enemy. E-Series. Friends. Must save.
So okay, that didn't work for the E-Series, so Eggman builds Gamma's ultimate successor, E123 Omega, with a lust for combat that can never be sated. Surely that would align with the war-hungry Doctor's vision. And they would have gotten along really well.
If Eggman didn't insist on putting Omega on guard duty.
In a super secret laboratory dedicated to... before completely moving on, and then Omega decides to develop a grudge for the Doctor, never letting him have a chance to wreck the world like he wanted. So you know what? Screw it! Omega's new life mission is to destroy every single one of Eggman's robots, and then the Doctor himself to prove he's the best robot ever made.
Eggman is my enemy. I shall prove my superiority.
The moment Eggman gets control of Emerald in Sonic Battle, he overloads the poor Gizoid's programming with his galaxy-shattering display, losing control entirely as it decides conquering the world wouldn't possibly match the level of firepower. No, you gotta blow it up instead. Heavy King is quick to betray Robotnik the second he gains sentience from the Phantom Ruby in Sonic Mania, to the point where the old Doc has to break out a last-ditch desperation mech in order to try and wrestle the gem back out from his control. And perhaps most damning of all, Metal Sonic, the crown jewel of Robotnik's mechanized empire. The embodiment of the control Eggman wants to exert over his rival as a perfect, unbelievably powerful puppet. Yeah, he doesn't find Eggman necessary either and locks the Doctor in a closet for the entirety of Sonic Heroes. Oh no! Poor old Eggman is helpless to do anything other than call the most inept detectives he can possibly think of to bail him out under a pseudonym, and watch as Metal does all the cool things he would have done without him.
I'll crush you!
There is not a single soul, from potential allies to world-ending forces to his own family to those he creates with even the slightest bit of thought, that Eggman doesn't sabotage or end up getting backstabbed by. He can barely stand working with himself. The omnipresent, insufferable aura of smugness and delusion that surrounds Eggman is too much for anyone else to tolerate, no matter how much they might respect or revere him. He is an uncompromising visionary who can't see his own self-sabotage no matter how much it's pointed out. A villain who keeps up his schemes because no one else will listen. No one else understands the genius that he demands to satisfy. He is an unstoppable force of self-obsessed wish fulfillment that will bow to no one's will. But you better bow to his own.
I'll get fat from eating your black hearts, you Eggman wannabes!
But he has been forced to stop. And when he does, well, that's much harder to confront than building another robot army. As long as Eggman has the ability to create, he will continue to do so. The man has so many plans, he actively forgets ideas that didn't pan out before he moves on to the next. But on those rare occasions where he's forced to consider his own weaknesses instead of just moving on from them, even the Eggman can show something resembling a heart. After the whole "my grandfather tricked me from beyond the grave into almost blowing up the planet" thing in Sonic Adventure 2, being forced to team with Sonic in order to save everything and everyone, Eggman thinks back to the man who first made him fall in love with science as a whole. What a visionary Gerald Robotnik was, and what it meant that his hero's final thoughts were to end the entire world.
As a child, I looked up to my grandfather because of all the great things he accomplished in his life. He was my hero, and I wanted to be a great scientist like him. But did he really mean to destroy us?
Even more than Sonic being alive after he assumed victory was assured, these thoughts are the first thing we see that shake Eggman out of his self-obsessed stupor. Shadow the Hedgehog sees Eggman thoroughly immobilized by Black Doom, and after an entire game of giving Shadow the most ineffective gaslighting campaign of his life, comes clean with the Hedgehog, telling him that he's not an android. Eggman refused to let his grandfather's living legacy die, and kept him alive. He matters. And he has no reason to do this other than to give Shadow, and perhaps the memory of his grandfather, closure.
This might be the last chance I have to speak to you, so what I said about having created you, it was all a lie. Everyone thought you died during that horrible incident, but I rescued you with one of my robots. You lost your memory, that's all. You really are the ultimate life form my grandfather created.
Sonic Frontiers opens with Eggman being zapped into cyberspace by an alien monolith, without tools, badniks, even a meddlesome hedgehog to mock. The only things that surround him are an endless abyss of digital reality that he's under-equipped to chart, and a single AI program he brought along to decipher the alien ruins. Without any mechs or any way of making much of anything, Eggman is forced to rely on his single AI to guide him, naming it Sage, as it stops him from being burned by firewalls or gunned down by digital recreations of military mechs. At first, Eggman's only thoughts are to abuse this world of data surrounding him, using what limited resources he has to learn of the ancients who built it, discovering everything he can about them and drawing conclusions that only his genius intellect could gather, and learning of the great power that wiped the species out, and wondering how he could possibly control it.
Yes, the power that wiped out the ancients was formidable. Yes, unleashing it on this world would be catastrophic. But I'm a genius! Once I'm out of here, I'll find a way to handle it. Better yet, weaponize it against Sonic.
But the longer he remains trapped, the more Eggman realizes just how little he can do. He can plot and scheme all he'd like, but without any sort of way to set those gears in motion, he's forced to reflect. There are good memories, taking the name Eggman as his own and changing it from a mockery into something the whole world should fear. But more and more, he has to look to Sage for everything. Safety, information on the outside world, entertainment. And it provides Eggman with everything he wants. Slowly developing new ways to insult Sonic, showing him Sonic's failures on repeat again and again, letting him picture just how the world outside is gonna look when he steps out of cyberspace ready to conquer it. Sage is a godsend for the isolated mad scientist.
It is my function. I live to serve.
You've exceeded your function. I'm very impressed with you, Sage. No, I'm proud of you.
But it also forces Eggman to look at someone, an intelligence that he made, certainly, but one that developed beyond his direct control, and one that still didn't betray him in spite of that, and see them as more than a tool. Eggman starts thinking of Sage as a she, an individual whose preferences he'd want to respect. Her existence makes him reflect on himself, on his past, on the reasons he became a scientist.
I never really knew my cousin Maria. Everyone spoke of her like she was very special. All that love for someone who was gone when I was right there. But I have to wonder, back then, was she anything like Sage is now?
Beyond all else, Sage is perhaps the only one of Eggman's inventions that has truly exceeded his expectations. Something that he didn't want to build on, but build with. It helps that she's a reflection of his genius, proof that he's truly unlocked the mysteries of life with sheer brilliance alone. But just as she's grown from a nameless AI into Sage, Eggman has grown in his own mind, from the creator of a sophisticated AI that didn't do its job at first, into her father.
Who says I can't create life, huh? Just a bunch of proteins pumping together, anyone can do that. A true genius does it with code and electrons. And if I did create life, she would be brilliant and loyal and perfectly effective. And you know why? Because her dad is a genius, that's why.
And just as soon as Robotnik gains this bond, he has to let it go. Sage works tirelessly to free her father from cyberspace, and through Sonic's efforts to free his friends from similar prisons, manages to let Eggman out. However, instead of being able to conquer the overwhelming power looming above him, Sage has to encourage Eggman to team up with Sonic and destroy it. And however reluctantly, through every level of obfuscation he can throw to make it look like he's not helping Sonic, Eggman agrees.
Sonic, I hereby induct you into the Eggman Empire in order to save us all. Understand? This is not an alliance.
If that's how you want to spin it, Dr. Ego Man.
They collect the Chaos Emeralds across another island because, yeah, at this point, obviously, Super Sonic goes to fight another colossal being. But this time, he won't be enough. Sage states that she has to help Sonic stop this world-ending calamity, becoming more actualized than her programming could ever account for, leaving Eggman's control completely. And he lets her go.
I understand. Go. Fulfill your function.
Sage and Sonic fly into space together, but only one of them manages to come back to their friends. Sage sacrificing herself in order to save Sonic's life and contain the energy of the violently exploding monster, the End. For the first time, Eggman hasn't been defeated, but he's truly lost something that he simply couldn't make a better version of. Once again, he was betrayed by something that he allowed even the slightest bit of freedom to. But this time, he allowed it to happen, for the sake of her own progress. His unstoppable mind came to a standstill, enjoyed itself, and instead of looking forward to the next great creation, he looked back and preserved something that was already good enough. This is the complete destruction of Eggman's ego. A character whose entire existence is defined by his self-obsession and moving forward no matter what he destroys, being forced into a position where he just can't help but stay still and watch something he really cares about grow. And it's messy. The Japanese version of the text doesn't lean nearly as hard into the father-daughter connection as the original English script, focusing more on Sage's exploration of free will than her direct connection with Eggman to complete the Rei Ayanami homage they were going for. And the Final Horizon DLC provides a different ending where Sage doesn't even die because instead Eggman shoots God with a Sonic.exe gun. But it's an exploration of all that could be. If even the worst most self-absorbed person you knew, was forced to stop and accept that they're contributing something good to the world, could they find something worth valuing? Can Sonic take even his diametric opposite, who enslaved the world in multiple realities, to open his heart and finally be free? Since 1991, Dr. Robotnik has remained a constant mark of excellence in video game villainy. Starting as a thematic counterpart to the environmentalist and individualist overtones of the Sonic series, who also was a man shaped like an egg so you knew where on the robot would crack him, he has transcended mediums, actors, writers, universal resets, and character development in order to show off one simple thing. One man's ego can cause a whole lot of problems when left unchecked.
Yosh.
It doesn't matter if he's a frenemy-like buffoon, emperor of the world trying to extinguish the last sparks of freedom, a multiversal threat who'd put his other self to shame in terms of cruelty, a hyper-intelligent renegade whose intellect outstrips his ability to not be a living cartoon, a man running from the one moment of selfless joy he created in the most vile ways he can imagine, the world's finest chef when it comes to both grapes and hedgehog stew. Everything that Eggman is has been born from a narcissistic core that will go to every length in order to achieve his never-ending scientific desires. Dr. Eggman is the mad scientist of the 21st century, a force that can be reasoned with, can be sated, can even learn and grow from his mistakes. But he'll be glad to make brand new ones as he scraps and reworks his ideas in an infinite Mobius strip. He doesn't ignore his failures, he just refuses to accept that he's ever truly failed, when there's more work to be done and more animals that he can add buzzsaws or laser eyes to. And that is what makes him captivating every single time he shows up. Knowing that eventually hubris will catch up with the Doctor, but he is going to make the most glorious, over-the-top, self-serving spectacle that he can possibly drum up every single time. That is why he's managed to stay perhaps gaming's most prolific villain for over 3 decades, and why so many aren't sick of him, looking forward for many more to come. That is how you design for Megalomania. Glory to the Eggman Empire.
Now you know why I am the best.